Based on how well my last gear tracker videos did, I'm really surprised it took me this long to make a new one. But hey everyone, my name is Guus, that's G-U-U-S, and today I'll be showing you how to implement interval workouts using gear tracker for the Samsung smartwatches. Because gear tracker is really diverse when it comes to implementing different interval workouts across the different sports that it supports. You can make these intervals based on distance, based on time, or even manually by the press of a button to start the next interval. So from a runner's perspective, I can implement very basic interval sessions, which are just run for a certain amount of time, rest for a certain amount of time, run again for a different amount of time, rest for a different amount of time. Or I can implement a Fartlek session, which Fartlek is Swedish for speed play or speed game, something like that. So in this case, you don't rest completely, but you run at a certain pace for a certain amount of time, and then your rest interval is actually still running, but at a lower pace, and then afterwards you go to the higher pace again. So you really play around with the speeds. That's of course why it's called speed game or Fartlek. But another maybe not as much used interval session that you could do with gear tracker, because this is all possible, is more of a progressive running session. So for instance, I want to run for half an hour, but every 10 minutes I'm going to go and increase my speed. You can set it up so that automatically it will let you know that 10 minutes have passed, so you should increase your speed. And if you have the premium subscription to gear tracker, you can even set different zones of speed to the different intervals so that it will let you know if you're outside of your speed zone. So in order to illustrate all this different functionality, I'll be implementing an interval workout with 2 different sets and a warm-up as well. So we'll have a warm-up which is manual, so it's not restricted by a certain distance or a certain time. We will just be able to press the button and then it will count down from 3 to 0. And then our first actual interval of the training will start. As I said, the intervals are divided into 2 sets. So the first set will be 2 times 15 seconds go and 10 seconds rest. So that will be kind of like the normal intervals, or even a fartlek could be implemented like that. And then the second set of our intervals will be 3 times 10 seconds go. So this is more of the progressive idea that I just explained to you, where you run faster every time 10 seconds in this case have passed. Of course, these are very short intervals, but it's just for the sake of this tutorial. Of course, in your own workouts, you would probably make these intervals a bit longer, but I hope that this translates the idea and how to implement these intervals in a very good way, so that you can implement your own sessions and adjust them to your exact needs. All right, but that's enough of my face. Let's switch over to a better view of the watch and let's get started with this interval tutorial. Here we are, gear tracker on my Gear S3, which works fine. It has some delays and stuff, but this is the oldest smartwatch that can run gear tracker and it works fine. So I'm sure that if you have any of the newer Samsung Galaxy watches, it's gonna work really well. Today we're gonna define an interval, of course, or an interval session, I should say. So let's start off by scrolling to the left until we find the interval section. I should point out that gear tracker does come with a couple of methods to define certain types of intervals in an easier way. So if we click right here on custom, you can see that we also have laps, go rest, and pyramid. But everything you can define in laps, go rest, and pyramid, you can also define in custom, since it's the most versatile option. If you know how to use custom, you know how to use all the other ones. So that's why I'll be focusing on the custom intervals option right here. If we go right into it, we can see that we can start by defining the warm-up. I already have it defined right here, but you can just simply decide, okay, I want the warm-up to be turned off, I want a certain distance, a certain time, or a manual click of the button to end my warm-up. For my warm-ups, I always like to have it on manual because I want to be able to decide when my warm-up ends and not have the watch decide when it ends. So in this case, I always keep it on manual. And in manual, you can decide how long you want the countdown to be until the next interval, in this case our first interval, start. So in this case, I have selected 3 seconds, but you can turn this up and down however you like, up to 30 seconds even. So that's quite nice to have. Then next up, we have the sets. So if we go down here, we have 3 sets set up right now. As you might remember, we only need 2, of course. So we go into the 3rd set and we're just gonna delete it by hitting this minus button right here. So hit minus and hit confirm in order to delete a set. And that automatically brings us to the 2nd set. So then we have to go 1 back. Now you can see we only have 2 sets remaining. Let's go to the 1st set and let's set it up. So let's go in. As you can see right here, sets by default have 11 intervals in them and they kind of alternate, you know, so you have go, rest, go, rest, go, rest, as an interval session should be normally. Of course, there are the progressive runs that I talked about before, but it's only the 2nd set where we will be actually defining that kind of interval. So right here, we will need 2 intervals, of course. A first one, which is 15 seconds go, 2nd one, which is 10 seconds rest, and then we need to repeat that combination 2 times. So let's go and delete all the other intervals apart from 2, and you simply do this by repeating this process, hit the minus and hit confirm, hit the minus and hit confirm. And as you can see, now we're on 9. So I'm just going to keep doing that until I have 2 intervals remaining. So here we go. Now we have 2 intervals remaining. Now let's actually define the intervals properly. So for each of these intervals, you can define it if you want it to be a time, a manual interval, turned off, a distance-based interval, or a time-based interval. So now we're around. In the case you want to define distance, make sure that you're not taking too many turns and stuff, because of course you are depending in this case on the accuracy of the GPS. And I've noticed that when I'm running on an athletics track, for instance, the accuracy will lack a little bit sometimes. You know, it will be off 10, 20 meters on a 400 meter lap, for instance. So if you're running on a straight line, or you just really want to have a kilometer, for instance, for your interval, you can use the distance. But because I will be showing it to you and I won't be running right now, I am using the time-based interval. So as we already said, the first interval we are gonna set up is a 15-second go interval. So we have time selected right here. I'm gonna go right in here and I'm gonna change this to 15 seconds. Let's go right there. And then we have to change it from rest to go, of course. So I love this, that the rest is a little turtle and the go is a little bunny. So we have to change it to go. And then we go to the next one. The next one's going to be a rest interval. It's going to be time-based and it's going to be a 10-second rest. So tap right on the middle. I always miss that for some reason. And then 10 seconds, as we said, is going to be the rest. So now we have go for 15 seconds, rest for 10 seconds, then we can scroll 1 further to the right and here's the repeat. So we said we would do this combination of intervals twice, so just simply tap on the middle again. I always tap on the number. You can define it to also repeat forever here, which is quite nice, but we are going to select 2 times. So what is going to happen now is we're going to go for 15, rest for 10, go for 15, rest for 10, and then it's going to move on to the 2nd set, which we are going to define right now. Use the arrows right here to move to the 2nd set. Tap right there. And as you can see, we have 11 intervals again set up. So I'm going to go and remove 10 of these because of course we only want the 10-second go to remain here. And we're going to repeat that 3 times. So I'm going to go and go through this process of deleting all of them except one until we have 1 interval remaining. There we go. It's a go interval in this case, so that's perfect. We have it time-based and we are gonna go and I always misstep, I don't know why, but there we go. And we're gonna have a 10-second go interval. If you want to link a zone, for instance, a pace zone or a heart rate zone to these intervals, you can if you have the premium subscription to Gear Tracker, and you simply tap right there. Then you can choose right here the type of zone that you want to define. And then you can select the zone by scrolling, as you can see. So that's something you can define if you want to. I will turn it off. Let me go through right there. In case you want different paces for different parts in your progressive run, you can't use this method where you just do 10 seconds and then you go and repeat it 3 times in this case, as we said. So let's set that up, because then you're gonna have the same zone each time. So if you want 3 different intervals and you want 3 different zones, you have to actually add intervals right here. So you can always add intervals before or after by hitting these plus buttons, and then you have to define different zones for each of those intervals. Even if the time is the same and you don't have rest in between, you do have to set up the zones separately. So that's set up right now as well. We have 10 seconds, just 1 interval, but it's gonna repeat 3 times. So now we have it set up, as you can see. 2 sets are set up, warm up is set up. Cooldown, I never set up personally, because after these 2 sets end, the activity will just simply continue. I don't like to link, like, again, just like the warming up, I don't like to link a time or distance to my cooldown, but if that's something you need, it's right there and it is for you to use. Then you have some settings for pop-ups after your intervals complete or something like that. So you can see they call it lap complete, but it's talking about the interval. So you can have the screen turn on or not. I like to have the screen turn on. Then there's a pop-up that you can set up. So you can have no pop-up, 3 seconds, 5 seconds, and 8 seconds. And 8 seconds, there we go. I like to set it to 5 seconds. I think that's a nice middle ground. You have enough time to look at it, but it's not too long. And then right here we have the indicator. This is again a premium feature for Gear Tracker, and it's a little ring that goes around the watch face, which will show you the progress, how far you are into the interval. It's quite nice to have. You will see it in a bit as well. And then you can set up some feedback. So you can have a warning, which will be just slightly before your interval ends. And then you have a sound and vibrate. You can set it up just by tapping it, as you can see, when the actual lap or interval completes. And then you just have the normal options right here. So you can scroll through the different options just like we saw before. Of course, now we did custom, can rename it. If you have premium, you can also duplicate this. So you can set up multiple different custom interval workouts, I should say, based on, just different ones. You can define different ones. Just let me put it that way. That way you don't have to go in and turn off intervals each time, because what I can do right here, if I go into these sets, and I can turn off individual sets. So you can see that it says enabled right here. Now it's disabled. And if I would now start the workout, it will only have the first set actually run, you know? So you can kind of define them like this as well. But if you do have premium, what you can do is you can clone custom and then have different workouts kind of predefined, and you don't have to go into sets and enable and disable the ones that you want to use. And then you can remove. All right, so we have our interval defined. One very important thing to always remember with Gear Tracker is if you have something defined right here, that doesn't mean that you're also using it in the activity. This is a mistake that I made in the beginning as well. So you first have to link what you just defined to an actual profile. So as you can see right here, we have the profiles option. I created a profile called test. So I go right in and then I scroll down. I have intervals right here. And as you can see, I have selected custom here. By default, if we go in, none is selected, as you can see, and it will also turn gray. But just go in and select custom in this case, and then we will make sure that the test profile is now linked to our custom interval setup. So then we go right here, and also make sure that you select test here. So if I go in, you can see I have a couple of different ones defined, but I will go into test. And then let's see if this works, right? Of course, normally you want to wait for the GPS and your heart rate to register, but I won't wait for it. And since it's just a time-based interval, it doesn't matter that much in this case, which is perfect. All right, so let's go and start the interval. First off, we have the warming up. You can see it right here. There's a little sun icon, which is perfect. I love the icons that Gear Tracker has, to be honest. So we have the little sun icon. I can warm up for however long I like. And whenever I think I'm ready, I press the button and it's going to count down, as we said, 3, 2, 1, go. And it's going to start our first interval. So if we see right now, we can see the bunny go around. So that means that this is a go interval. And this is the little indicator that I was talking about, right? So after those first 15 seconds pass, the run interval has started. And you will see that now we are in a rest interval. The little turtle runs around. That was the rest interval. Now we're going to go into that second go interval. Again, 15 seconds. We see the bunny go around again. And after 15 seconds, it's going to beep again. We're going to go into our next rest interval. And when this is showing, the interval is already running in the background. So that's why it shows up right here and not right up there. So the last time our rest runs out. So this was our first set, right? 2 times, 15 seconds go, 10 seconds rest. So what we're going to have right now is we're going to have 3 times, 10 seconds go. This was the first time. And now you're going to see that we have go again for 10 seconds. So we go right through. There we are. And now this started our last interval. Again, 10 seconds go. So we can see the rabbit go around again. There we go. And that was our entire interval session that we just defined. So now you can see we just have a normal workout happening right now. There's nothing anymore when it comes to intervals and stuff like that. So now you can just do your cooling down. Of course, if you defined a cooling down, it will still show right here, just like the warming up kind of, or just like the intervals. But in this case, we don't have a cooling down defined. This will just now be treated like a normal activity. And then when we are done cooling down in our case, we can just hit pause, hit finish, and then we are done with our activity. And that is how you implement an interval workout session in Gear Tracker. I know it might seem a little bit complicated in the beginning, but this video is always here to help you out. So be sure to just follow it part by part, instruction by instruction, and I'm sure you'll be able to figure it out and implement all the different interval workout sessions that your heart desires. In case you still have some questions or you would like me to review or make a tutorial for a different part of the Gear Tracker app, be sure to let me know in the comments down below. If you thought this video was helpful, by the way, be sure to leave a like down below as well while you're down there leaving your comments. Anyways, if you're interested in more Gear Tracker videos, I have 2 other ones, a review and a tutorial on how to set up kind of general profiles for Gear Tracker. So be sure to check them out right up there in the corner as well as in the description below this video. But that's really everything I wanted to talk about. So thank you so much for watching. You just keep on rolling and then you'll see me again in the next one. Bye-bye.